Okay, I think, Allison, I think we're ready to go. Supervisor Conley's going to be on the line here with us, so. Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are we? Enjoy the rain yesterday? Feels nice, a little humid now. If you don't know, I'm Allison Van Pelt, your new sustainability planner, housed within Polk County Public Works. And I have been funded through this position through the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, which I'm gonna just kind of give you an overview of today, take any questions and things like that. And I've been giving the same presentation to all of the counties within the MSA that are involved in this process. And so I wanted to give you the standard presentation that I'm giving them, and then we can go into any other further discussion you might like. I think I'm just gonna click, oh, yep, click. Okay, so most of you already know who I am. If you don't, I'm a native Iowan. I went to DMAC and then to Iowa State University twice, in fact, and then I was formerly a senior planner at the Des Moines Area MPO. So regional planning is at the heart of what I have been trained to do, specifically regional sustainability planning. And so far at the MPO, I worked on anything from EVs, hazard mitigation, watershed management, all the in between. And so really this is a nice coalescence of what I've been doing over the last few years within the region. And now I get to carry it out through this agency. This is obviously a new position within the county. And so we are funding it through that grant. And really we're trying to model my position after the watershed coordinator position as well. John Swanson, as you all know, really doesn't work just within Polk County, but he works with the neighbors around us as well. And just like water, climate does not stop at any sort of lines or boundaries that we might set up on our own. So this slide, nobody wants to read. I won't even read it all to you, but CPRG is a two-phase process. So the first phase is this $1 million planning grant that we have now. So originally the state of Iowa was offered $3 million to carry this out at the state level. The state of Iowa declined. And when that happened, that triggered all of the three largest metropolitan statistical areas within the state to receive $1 million instead. And so Des Moines MSA being one, Cedar Rapids was also one, and then the Davenport area was the third. Davenport actually turned it down as well. They didn't think they had the capacity to carry it out. And so Iowa City and Cedar Rapids are now working together on a kind of dual funded single plan. So they have twice as much money and about half as much population. So that's really fun for us. Tomorrow and over the next couple weeks, we should be hearing more about what phase 2 will look like. And that's gonna be the implementation grants. So phase 1, we're gonna do a lot of planning, a lot of discussions about what we want to see as far as climate action within our region. And phase 2 is actually funding those things. And so it's a little bit, well, it's not a little bit, it is quite soon for these to come out, but we expect the NOFO to be out this fall, and that next spring we're already applying for projects to be funded and rolled out with. And so what you'll see that I've been asking of each of the communities and all the counties is that they start looking at their capital improvement programs, some of their long-term visions, strategic plans and things like that now, so that we can get those projects into a document to be put forward next spring, and then we can start rolling some of those funding in. Really, at the cusp of both of these phases, we really want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Biden administration has pretty much tasked this grant to say, what is the best method, what are the best pathways for your area, your state, or your metropolitan statistical area to reduce emissions and to deal with climate change. And so you'll see a lot of things about emissions reductions, and within climate action planning there's mitigation, which is the reducing of greenhouse gas emissions and other climate pollutions, and then there's also adaptation. And within the grant document itself, it says that mitigation is the main cusp of what we want to do here, but multi-beneficially, there's many areas where we can adapt as well as mitigate at the same time. I like to use the idea of street trees. Street trees can do both things, right? We can lower the heat on the ground for people who are walking, make friendlier streets to be walking on, while also sequestering carbon and enhancing workforce and things like that. So those kind of multi-beneficial projects are something that I really want to hone in on with the counties, with the cities, and with partners to really move these things forward and make sure that people are getting their whole bang for the buck and reaching the goals that they set for themselves. So if you'd like to read all those words later, they're in your packet. So I've been going over what a metropolitan statistical area is, which each of the counties as well, because that is kind of it's a It can be many different things. Even as you look at central Iowa, it almost looks like Boone, Story, Guthrie, Dallas, Polk, Jasper, Warren, and Madison are all within one MSA, but that's actually not true. Boone and Story are their own micropolitan statistical area and not included in our metropolitan statistical area until you hit a certain threshold in certain terminologies. The EPA decided to go with the latter, where we have the four lateral counties, so Guthrie to Jasper, and then Warren and Madison as well. One of the things that's also within the document and the grant guidelines is the fact that, these are the planning boundaries that they suggest you work within, but they also suggest reaching out to your neighbors even more. And so one of the things, based on the fact that Iowa State University is just to our north, there is much transportation and economic interchanges that go on between our counties, and that there has been interest from them. We've also invited Story County to come along on this, and they have been willing, and so they're going to be a part of this grant in this process as well. That does not necessarily mean that they get any more services or less services, but really a lot of these projects and a lot of the things that are coming out of both the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act really have a lot to do with regionalism, collaboration, and having these partnerships and things like that. So this is just another olive branch in strengthening some of those regional ties. So that's why on this next one, you'll see that the planning area that I have solidified so far includes 7 counties, not just the 6 that were originally outlined in the EPA grant. So there is a nice matrix that comes out of this as well. So we received the award in August 2023, and by next March 1st, 2024, just before my 40th birthday, we have a laundry list of things on the left there that are due. So greenhouse gas inventories for the whole entire region, which we've already got started because at my former position, I did greenhouse gas inventories for the Des Moines Metro. So we're just gonna add on to that. And I'm finalizing the quality assurance plan to submit to the EPA right now before we start finalizing and putting together the rest of that inventory. We also are encouraged to have a benefits analysis, which we will be kind of digging into what a benefits analysis for our region even looks like. But then we are required to have a low income and disadvantaged community benefits analysis, as well as a review of authority to implement, which is quite the undertaking in itself. That review of authority really is asking, do we have the authority to do anything? If we do, what? If we don't, what mechanisms would we need? What mechanisms might be a barrier, and things like that. And so really we'll be working with people who went to law school. My dad wanted me to. I did not go to law school, so I'm not a lawyer, thankfully. Sorry. You're a great lawyer. But we will be working with folks that have that expertise to say, okay, what is in the federal, state, county, and jurisdictional codes and ordinances and things like that that would allow us to say if cities wanted to put solar or advanced solar energy, what mechanisms are there, what mechanisms are needed. And so we'll be having very specialized conversations around that as well. And actually within that space, I really have been working with the Eastern Iowa contingent that has the same grant award on working on that together. The federal and the state things are going to be the same for both of our regions. It's those county and municipality pieces. So we'll be coordinating on that piece so we don't have to both be spending a whole bunch of time on the exact same thing. We'll be working together as well. So that is the PCAP, so Priority Climate Action Plan. And again, that's due in March 2024. So if you see me with grayer hair next March, that is why. We have a lot to do in a very little amount of time, but that's why a couple weeks ago the board was presented with a resolution to bring on Green Iowa AmeriCorps members. One of those starts next week, and then by mid-October I'll have 2 more underneath me that'll be helping lift this load for us, and so that's why we did that. The other thing within there is originally we had been talking about potentially outsourcing that greenhouse gas inventory. But based on the caliber of Green Iowa AmeriCorps members that are going to be coming on, we're going to keep it in-house. We're going to train them and make it a workforce development type thing so that they can do high level, low level, and then also train other cities to be able to do it, because a lot of the grants that are coming out right now require those kinds of studies, and there isn't much expertise in the metro about that. So we're just kind of creating a little bit more capacity in those realms. So the second phase will start next spring, and that's the comprehensive part of this climate action plan. And that's where we really dig in more with the public and things like that, and saying, what would you like to do? What are you willing to do? Where are the pinch points where you're not willing to make a change? Maybe for some households, it might be that they do want to increase energy efficiency or put solar on their houses, or maybe they want to transition to an EV or reduce their consumption. It could be a number of different things, but being in this climate space and working in climate action, there's a lot of push and pull. And so instead of dictating anything to anyone, we'll be asking the question, what is next for us? What do you want to do? Because I am not necessarily in the position to be able to drag anyone anywhere, and I've never enjoyed dragging people anywhere because they don't like it when you get there. And so I would rather people have their own interests and their own desires be fulfilled rather than saying, this is what you need to do and this is me telling you to do it. And so that is one of the things that it's very much going to be an open conversation with the public. Where are you having issues? What do you want to see in your community? And so you'll see a lot of the Green Iowa AmeriCorps member time going into next spring and then summer, really going to community events and having that conversation. And sometimes they might take things like surveys, but other things, we've had really good success in using art with the rain campaign to communicate stormwater management. And so maybe we'll use something a little bit more creative, because climate pollution reduction doesn't really draw people in just like stormwater management does not as well. And so we want to make it attractive for people and not put them off just by saying buzzwords that they might not like. There are changes that are coming, and it could be just for the bottom line of their pocketbook, but it could be for the future of their children. And of course, with any federal grant, we have about 4 years of status reports to do through 2027, and that's when the final status report for this grant is due. So I've been going through a lot of what the grant is asking, and so as I've been going around to each of the counties so far, I've been really trying to solidify what to expect from me and what to not expect from me. So one thing, I will convene, I will advise, I'll support, promote, and facilitate. I'll do a lot of the writing. We'll be doing a lot of the analytics within my office, as well as with partners, including, as we move forward, even workforce is on the table. And I've already been reaching out to educational institutions. DMAC took on the wind energy technician program, and it has gone like gangbusters. So maybe there's opportunities to expand in those areas as well. And so I will be working with those, convening those tables, and making sure that I'm taking input from all the different agencies that are at the table, as well as making sure that all the federal requirements are met. And one thing I always like to say is I'm going to be realistic. I do have dreams, I do have hopes. That is not for me to put on anybody else. I realize that I can only change myself, and other people are going to want to change themselves however they want. So I'm going to be staying very realistic. And on the other side, I won't be able to set any rules or regulations that is not within the bounds of my capacity. That is something for bodies like yours to decide for the county, or other governing bodies to decide. That's not for me. And just like John Swanson, I work for Polk County. I'm housed at Polk County Public Works, but I'm also working with all these different agencies, all these different counties, all these different jurisdictions. And so I am a resource to all of them, just as I am to you. The other thing I like to say is, within the realm of sustainability, people think that we in sustainability know all the answers. We know everything about food and everything about energy and transportation and all these things. I'll put it straight to you, I don't actually know everything about everything. And so I am happy to say when I do not know something, and I'm also happy to reach out to those partners and get the answers if I don't have them. And so when I say I don't know, I'll get back to you. You can take that as a promise that I will get back to you. And then lastly, really, is just what I'm asking of each of the jurisdictions is, one, to start going through your capital improvement programs. Start looking at what is shovel ready, what does the county want to do? Polk County actually has goals on emissions reduction. So what pieces really do you want to hone in on, and what do you want to put forward next spring? Start thinking about those things. As we move forward with the greenhouse gas inventories, I might work with staff for the data collection and things like that, but that should not be too big of a lift, especially here in Polk County, where a lot of that is already done. I also will be having different convenings and workshops and discussions and things like that. Some might be at the policy level, some might be at the technical level, some might be a mix of the two, where policy and technicalities come together. And so please, by all means, join in on these conversations. have questions for me, I'm happy again, if I don't know the answer, to go get that. And right now, I'll really be honing in on things like the attorney's office and attorney's offices all across central Iowa to go through those legal authority pieces. So this fall and winter, we'll be really ramping up our outreach and engagement. And so again, I'll be working with staff throughout the county government to identify different and connect with partners that we can work through. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I don't like to I don't want to use capacity where capacity is already being used in many different ways. And so again, I think Polk County is in a good spot where you guys have contemplated what the goals are as far as emission reductions within the county, but really start to solidify those, because as we move forward, those will be honed in on a little bit more, massaged a little bit more, and we'll have those multi-jurisdictional conversations about how we can work together, maybe between the counties to get to those goals and things like that. So if you can't tell, I've given this speech quite a few times. This is my 5th time doing it. So if I miss something, if you have a question about anything, of course, I am your employee. I'm happy to answer anything today, but also if you need me in the future as well. My contact information is up there, and of course, John Norris knows how to get a hold of me, and you all have my email as well. So I'd be happy to take any questions you might have at this time about the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant.
A question, I don't have any questions, Allison. I just like to comment that, listening to you, it reminds me of a few years back when we really started getting much more aggressive from the county standpoint on water quality initiatives and, working with other jurisdictions and the John Swansons of the world, being able to communicate with those other jurisdictions and rural landowners and what have you. We're so much further ahead there than we are here. Mm-hmm. We're starting here than where we started back then with water quality, I think. And you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And really using those lines that we've already, and those trust lines and relationships that John's already built. Luckily, in many cases, I've been in a handful of the conversations that he's been in. So, things like agriculture might not have been necessarily in my wheelhouse prior. And so tapping into John's networks and things like that. So I'm not having to build all new relationships and start from scratch again. So yeah, I think we're starting a snowball in the same direction.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great comparison, because we know, 2 years ago you passed the climate resolution, and Connie will talk about what we're doing on the climate action team, but it's not unlike what John has done, and Polk kind of leading the way here, but this is, and seizing the opportunity to get this federal grant. I will mention that it's paying for Allison, all the Green Corps folks. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you made that point. There's a dearth of folks who can do greenhouse gas emissions analysis and work in this space, and so we're going to be training 3, 4 more people just in the next year through this grant. It'll be a value to not just our community but the whole state. So
Definitely.
And then in terms of money that you see coming down on the horizon, do you see that going through the same process to the states where we could? No. Okay.
Not as far as right now. And actually, so Connie and I were just talking about this. We got a very vague email from the EPA. They've been very quiet about what the second phase of the implementation grants is going to look like. But last week we got an email saying, hey, on Thursday, tomorrow, we are going to have a webinar about this next phase. So I assume tomorrow and in the coming weeks, we really learn what those implementation grants look like. And from what it says in the Phase 1 documentation, any jurisdiction that is covered in the planning document through this grant is then eligible for the implementation dollars. So the state of Iowa would not be eligible for the dollars. Polk County, Dallas, Story, and all these jurisdictions in between would.
Yeah, just so that you don't get squeezed out again by the governor making a unilateral decision.
I take things with stride.
That would be helpful. That's good.
Yeah.
And do we have any vision for what kind of dollars we're going to be eligible for in the second phase? I mean, are we talking?
I believe the whole pot is about 4.7 billion.
Okay.
But tomorrow we'll find out a little bit more about the parameters, and then after I'm going around to the counties right now, just because that's kind of the higher level governmental body for the region, but I'll be working with the MPOs, SERPTA, MIPA, and a lot of these regional entities that work with all the cities. And by the time I get to those, I should have more details on the implementation. So that will help us as we look at our capital improvement programs and, you know, our shovel-ready projects to say, oh, okay, this fits within that, or, hey, this one doesn't necessarily fit here. If we tweak it in XYZ ways, then it would fit with these dollars. And also we have the opportunity to, and I keep calling it this and it's kind of silly, but like 7-layer dip some of these things, right? We could do a little bit from climate pollution. Maybe there's something from hazard mitigation. There's the carbon reduction dollars that will go to the MPO as well. You know, we really could start layering some of these things in a more strategic fashion instead of, I keep calling it the cash cube right now. We're just in this federal cash cube where there's just all these grants, and really we just need to pause and say, these are the things that we actually want to do. So let's focus on the grants that we actually can get rather than just grabbing at everything.
Right,
So,
makes sense.
Anything else, board members?
Will you do that again?
anytime you need.
I love it.
Yeah. I try to keep it fun. It's a very serious topic sometimes, and you just gotta throw some fun in it too.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks. Is that all we had for today? I believe it is, no?
Connie's gonna give me an update on the
Okay.
climate action.
Okay.
Good morning. So my name is Connie McGough Kaufman. I work with General Assistance as a supervisor over there. And 2 years ago, when you guys passed your resolution to reduce greenhouse emissions with Polk County, the CAT team, the Climate Action Team, was put together. There's about 25 members of it, but about 12 of us that show up monthly. We meet once a month to discuss improvements within the county, facilities, and where we can go, which I think Allison will be a great asset, and some of the other people that we're bringing on to assist with bringing that into the community also. So when we first started meeting, we came up with a plan, and we got a consultant with Pale Blue Dot. And so we've been working with Pale Blue Dot, and they've been gathering greenhouse gas emission data on all of our 27 county buildings that we have. And they've also been looking at solar for all of our buildings. And they've also met with and did Zoom calls with all of our department heads just to say, hey, are there things we might be missing that you guys utilize in the community, or resources that you have, or even supplies that you need on a regular basis that we can look at doing differently throughout this whole process. And so I sat in on a lot of those, and it was kind of interesting to hear everybody's feedback, even internally, everything just from having like water fountains, having the water bottle fillers in every building that they do not have them for the staff. So from there, I've been working with them. Our goal is, hopefully, I would guess within the next several months, to get some more data from them and ideas and suggestions on what they see the Polk County moving forward and how we can utilize them. And then I know they're supposed to be meeting with us and meeting with you guys as the board to give all of those suggestions. So I'll keep you guys updated on that and give that to John. Some of the things that we have done is Scott Orth and General Services, and those guys have Resource Innovation that came in initially, and they did a audit of all the 27 buildings we have with the county. So they looked at the greenhouse gas emissions, electricity, and that, and then they gave improvements that they would like to see made that could reduce in what we pay and how, and all of the electric that we use and everything. So I know Scott and his group have been working diligently on building to building and getting a lot of that done. And one of the grants that we applied for, and Sean actually was a great asset in applying for it and did the application for the Energy Efficiency Block Grant, in which we've been awarded $75,000 for the next 3 years. And so he's working with Scott and General Services on kind of what we can utilize that funding for coming up for this first year. And then Sean also let us know that you guys were awarded yesterday the Community Development Block Grant. That's the $744,000 per year over the next 3 years, with that first year going towards the Sobering Center. We did a conference call last week with MPO has been overseeing the Safer Streets grant, and so they'll be reaching out to Polk County and the other entities to see if we want to be a partner in that and how we want to be a partner in that. So we'll have more information on that and hopefully what we can get moving forward. We did apply through the MPO for the EV charging and infrastructure grant. We asked for 88 charging station spots, and that's where we had asked the board for a match of 20% if we get that. We're still waiting to hear. MPO is still waiting to hear on what they're going to be awarded, and then how they're going to distribute that to us. That's the EV charging and infrastructure grant. Yes. And so we're hoping, we haven't heard much on the Solar for All. I actually attend quite a few webinars and that from the federal level on what's coming out grant-wise. There was one yesterday on that. We're just trying to see what the state's doing for that, and if that'll be something that we'll be able to play a part in and be involved in. So, yeah.
The state's doing nothing.
So, yeah. So I don't know if you guys had any questions or,
Is that it, John?
oh.
No, yeah, just,
And today, we're going to meet at 11 a.m. because Iowa Event Center now wants to partner with us also with their sustainability group.
Really?
So, yeah, in Polk County Conservation, who was doing this far before we started, because they already have solar out there and some electric vehicles, also have been sitting in on all of our meetings. And that has helped us also moving forward to kind of understand the process, some of the roadblocks and that have come up.
I'm just curious, so, and this probably is a dumb question, but, you know, Scott, goes to Scott more than anyone, so like, on the Iowa Event Center, and whether it's the arena or Ivy Hall or whatever it may be, you know, some of those roofs we had installed, re-roof vets and what have you, like if there's decisions made to go solar, whether that impacts our guarantees on those roofs or not, when you start mounting things on there. So I want to make sure little details like that we don't screw up a guarantee on a roof or something like that that we've spent millions of dollars on.
and that's part of what the RFP did, right? Go ahead, come on, Scott, explain, because that's I forget the outfit that did that, but they looked at all our roofs for structural preparation, right?
Yes, sir. Scott Orr General Services. The first thing we do, and we've done it across 27 buildings thus far that are under our purview, directly under our purview, is a rooftop survey. We have a structural survey done first thing to make sure the rooftop array would work for us. And in most instances thus far, that's been the case. Because we don't directly supervise those buildings, that hasn't been done yet, but that would be our first order of business.
Okay, I'm sure Chris Conley is probably engaged in that too, because I know the capitals that we've done up there haven't been inexpensive, so we want to make sure we just protect that infrastructure as we move ahead with these initiatives, so.
And that's part of the cost analysis. If you're going to put them on, are there any structural supports that need to be done?
Sure.
So we'll know whether it makes sense economic as well.
I just don't want some contractor to come back and say, hey, when something leaks, we have 20-year guarantee on that. He said, well, guarantee's not valid now because you drilled holes in it to mount solar panels or some crap like that, you know what I mean?
I do. When we have a survey like that done, the first, among the documentation, the paperwork that we review first off is the warranty and guarantee information, and make sure that we're not in violation of any warranty or making any kind of a warranty null and void by, you know, that kind of activity.
Good, great,
Thank you.
perfect, thank you.
Yeah, just to add, yeah, so everything, you know, Connie talked about what we're doing and what we'll apply for grants for. This is all geared towards emission reduction, but in most, if not all cases, also reduce our long-term energy costs. And everything gets evaluated on that cost-benefit analysis as we move forward. And then as we get more information on what grants are available, those will be changed, and we'll see what grant money helps bring stuff into a net positive on the cost-benefit ratio. So that'll all be analyzed as we move forward, but we're looking at both the emissions reduction and long-term reduction in energy costs. I would be remiss if I didn't say, Connie talked about Pale Blue Dot and doing the analysis of our greenhouse gas emissions, but frankly, Adam, I want to cite Adam because he had it all done before we even reduced our consultant costs because of the work that Adam and the whole team pulled together, but he really put together a great greenhouse gas emissions inventory of county operations.
You know, it just amazes me how this debate goes on nationally and even globally about whether, the climate is impacted by all these different things or not. It's just a ridiculous debate to even have. I think you probably read this summer at Manatee Bay in Florida, on the Gulf side, they had a buoy water temperature at 102 degrees in the ocean. The water temperature in the ocean was 102 degrees. It's killing the coral reefs. So if you don't, if that just didn't, it's happening, it's real.
Yeah.
So whatever we can do locally here, we need to do it. So I agree.
The one final thing I want to point out is Connie, because, this is a passion of mine, but she early on recognized that I probably didn't have the bandwidth to manage all this. And she has stepped up incredibly. And is driving this train and leading the team. And we do have most every department, well, it's about a dozen or so, but most departments are represented at our monthly meeting. November will be 2 months we've met. We're getting close to getting the plan back from Pale Blue Dot that'll kind of give us some guidance going forward. But I just want to thank Connie and recognize her in front of all you for all the extracurricular work she's put into this.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Yep.